Olaf Scholz paying his respects to the victims of a mass stabbing in Solingen. The German Chancellor branded the attack as terrorism and vowed not to bow in the fight against extremism.
This was terrorism. Terrorism against us all. That threatens our lives and community, the way we live. That is also what those who plan and carry out such attacks always intend, and that is something we will never accept nor tolerate.
Over the weekend, police arrested the main suspect, a 26-year-old Syrian man. The Islamic State terror group has claimed responsibility. Meanwhile, officers searched the asylum centre where he is reported to have lived. According to media reports, the alleged perpetrator had an application for asylum rejected, but he went on the run before he could be deported back to Bulgaria, the country where he had first entered the European Union. Far-right groups have held protests since the attacks and were met by counter-demonstrations. The incident has turbocharged calls to tighten asylum, deportation and security rules.
This young man was not on a legal basis in Germany concerning the German asylum right. He was not allowed to get asylum in Germany, and I question mark why he was still in Germany due to the fact that he was obliged to go home. And in case that he would have been sent home, he would have not been able to do this terror attack on Friday evening in Solingen on the Vorhof.
The German Chancellor promised to get a grip on deportations.
We will do everything we can and must to ensure that those who cannot and may not stay in Germany are repatriated and deported.
Scholz said he also wants to review weapons laws and improve cooperation with European neighbours. In the capital, nerves are on edge.
It's shocking that something like this can happen in Germany.
I already feel safe because, as they say, dirt always floats to the top. And of course, you only ever hear about these things and not about the things that go on normally in a city like this. But of course, it's a bit scary.
The right-wingers will profit from this act. They will exploit it and say, look, we have to get rid of all the refugees. And I'm more afraid of that than of refugees.
For Olaf Scholz, the fallout may continue. The attack is likely to dominate in two state elections later this week, where his Social Democrat Party is expected to suffer heavy defeats.
And for more on that political fallout, let's bring in Till Steffen. He's a Member of Parliament for the Green Party, that is in Olaf Scholz' coalition government. He joins us from Hamburg. Mr. Steffen, the suspect entered the European Union for the first time in Bulgaria and should have been deported there from Germany long ago. Why is it not possible for Germany to simply implement its own laws?
We have all the rules we need, but in fact, they didn't succeed in proceeding them because they tried to meet him at home, and then they should have searched further for him, but they didn't actually. And of course, we need sufficient implementing of our rules, and that's necessary if we want to have sufficient proceedings in order to send people to those countries where they can apply for asylum.
Now, talking about deporting people, Germany generally does not deport people to Syria or Afghanistan. Why is that?
It's basically just to the fact that they are in danger because there's a terrible war going on, supported by Putin. And he's making a lot of pressure on the people in Syria. And he's also at the same time promoting the right-wing party in Germany to do something against asylum seekers. So we have to see that there is also a push factor to Germany, that people, they try to rescue their own lives. That's understandable, I think. And we can't send people to a country where they're in the risk of their lives.
Now, the opposition CDU's party leader, Friedrich Merz, now says after Solingen, enough is enough. He's offering the government cooperation but he demands a ban on asylum seekers from Syria and Afghanistan, as well as tougher border patrols. Can the Greens agree to that?
I think that could be a big mistake, because if you see the strategy of the so-called Islamic State, they want to bring every Muslim as an enemy of the general society. And of course, many Muslims, they feel quite at home in Germany. And the strategy is to threaten all people, all non-Muslim people in Germany. And if you have reactions that go against any Muslim or any person from Syria, then the terrorists from Islamic State, they say, look, you have to come to us because they won't accept you. Whatever you do, you're an enemy to them. And so we are your political home, and come to our organization. And we would feed the terrorism if we would react like that. And we should rather react really specifically on those people who are really dangerous.
Well, but how do you specifically react to that? How do you specifically react to something like what happened in Solingen?
We know that we need rules, and we have rules in order to send people home who might not be in Germany, and that has to be enforced. That's, of course, clear. And the other thing is the rules for wearing weapons in public should be changed, because it's legal to wear to wear a knife in Germany. It's legal. And if you have, but in fact, there's no real reason to have a knife in public life. And so we're discussing to have strict laws on knives. And so it's an opportunity less in order to commit such crimes.
Do you really think that changing the rules on knife crimes will prohibit such attacks? I mean, running around with a large knife and killing people is already illegal, is it not?
Of course, it's illegal running around and killing people, but it's legal running around with a knife. And if you want to preempt such a crime, you have to you need to have competences for police to control, for example, backpack. If people come to a festival or are at the train station, you need competences for police to have some controls. And if someone has a knife at a festival where there's no reason for that, and you can ban them from the festival, that could be an opportunity. And it's also an improvement of security, because we have a lot of problems with crimes committed with knives, also in public life, not only terrorist attacks, just conflicts between young people. They escalate very quickly because young people wear knives. And if you would ban knives in public, that would be an improvement anyway. But of course, it's just an further entrenchment. At previous times, the terrorists, they took big cars in order to send them to festivals like that. And these days we have barriers in front of those festivals, so they seek other. If we make the space even closer for such crimes, it's just another step. But of course, we need real preemption, and we need to have work with Muslims who are in danger to sympathize with Islamic State. We know some really successful measures, and we have to enforce them.
Now, do you think that there are 3 state elections coming up next month, and the anti-immigration parties, both of them, are predicted to win big in all 3 states? Do you think that voters will turn away from them if you just make knife laws stricter?
I think it's very important to have the whole picture. That you need the preemptive work with young Muslims. That's very, very important too. But of course, those parties, they are trying to make a cheap game, because they are playing the we and they game. The Islamic State plays himself. They are playing it too. And of course, it works out even better if you don't have big Muslim communities, because if you have Muslims as friends, as colleagues, all those things like that, the we and they thing, they wouldn't work out. But if you have parts of the country where you only have a few immigrants, then it works even better to make people afraid of immigrants and of Muslims. And I think that could be a way for them to get success. But at the same time, there are many people who are fed up with this strategy. They don't want to have our country divided into enemies. They want to have our country living together with different people, with different religions, and they know that it's a better way to live in peace if you don't foster the hate against each other.
Till Steffen there, the co-governing Green Party, a member of the German Parliament. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's bring in our chief political correspondent, Nina Haase. There are 2 state elections this weekend. What impact could the attack in Solingen have on the outcome?
Well, it's already having an impact on the debate. The Islamist threat is back on the agenda, and the reactions have been somewhat predictable from the various parties. There are calls for stricter asylum policies, stricter deportation rules. All of that is, of course, water on the mills of the far right, who've been running their campaign in these 2 states, in Saxony and Thuringia, on anti-immigration policies. And now the lead candidate in one of those states, who can officially be labelled a fascist, Björn Höcke, his team are now campaigning on, you've got the choice, Höcke or Solingen. So they're using this incident. And his party looks set to be the winner of the elections in both states. They're currently polling at some 30%, whereas the traditional parties, and especially the parties that are ruling here in Berlin, they'll have a hard time even making it into the regional parliaments at all.
But will they have to build some sort of coalitions to actually get in power?
Well, indeed, in those 2 states, a lot of votes are likely going to go to populist parties. So the far-right AfD that I've already mentioned, and the BSW, that's a very new party with a charismatic leader who left the Left Party in order to start her own. And what both of these parties, AfD and BSW, have in common is that they can be labelled anti-system, Russia-friendly or pro-Russia, as well as very tough on immigration. And while all traditional democratic parties have ruled out collaborating with the AfD because of their partially right-wing extremist positions, there will likely be no way around taking BSW into consideration when trying to form a government in those regions. And that will, of course, give them a boost in terms of national debates. They'll have an impact when it comes to the debate around Germany's support of Ukraine, for example, where they're very much against.
Tell us more about the weekend protests against the far right.
Well, in some parts of the country, Germany is becoming as polarised as we've seen it happen in other Western countries, such as the UK and the US. There, both sides have built strong networks over the last few years. So after Solingen happened, there were far-right protests. But immediately, you also saw a lot of counter-protests. So mobilisation happens very quickly these days on all sides.
And tell me also how Germany plans to actually tighten asylum policy, being really the crux of all of this.
Well, Olaf Scholz announced last year already that Germany will put more effort into deporting all those who don't have permission to stay in Germany. The numbers are quite staggering. Some 200,000 people here in Germany at the moment who don't have a legal basis. So just how that is supposed to happen, there are many different ideas, ranging from reviewing the rules under which Germany collaborates with other EU countries in terms of migration, as well as discussing with third countries how to deport people back to Syria and Afghanistan. That is legally, of course, very, very difficult because there are no diplomatic relations with those countries. And, of course, equipping the authorities better. And that debate has been going on for a while, but it is, of course, bang on the agenda again now after Solingen.
DW's Nina Haase there.